Do the tough things first.
Ray Zinn now imparts his management philosophy in Tough Things First. Zinn covers the gamut from the essence of human happiness
Having value is key to human happiness.
to the downside of venture capital for entrepreneurs,
Venture capital can be the antithesis of entrepreneurial spirit.
the essence of entrepreneurial discipline.
An entrepreneur without determination is truly an oxymoron.
Ray Zinn, Silicon Valley's longest-serving CEO.
Welcome, and this is Richard Zinn. I'm Ray Zinn's nephew. I've had the great fortune of being able to bounce ideas and get advice off Ray along the way of getting the startup going. I can honestly say that along the way, at pivotal times in our company's trajectory and history, Ray has had the best advice. You know, it's in his book, it's in his podcast. A little bit of background on myself. I'm not in the semiconductor business, but we do manufacture a product. Most of what we've done has been self-funded. We manufacture a product that provides race telemetry. That's kind of what I'm most proud about what we've done in race telemetry. It used to be something that was sold to engineers on a race team, and now we've kind of broadened it, and athletes are involved in the conversation, and they consume the data. And the team manager, the mechanic, the coach, the trainer, everybody on the team is now involved in this thing. And even the viewer, with the help of NBC, we now bring sports telemetry to viewers. What we do as a company is we make race telemetry more consumable by everybody who could benefit from it. So diving in this, the point of this podcast here, I kind of had this question, when does working hard get taken too far? So something I've been accused of before as well. When does the virtue of having a strong work ethic turn into a failing or a vice?
Okay, well, thanks, Richard. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. There's a difference between hard working and working hard, hard to work for and working hard. If we break that down, being hard working is an individual thing, and something that we all strive to do is have a super work ethic and apply ourselves totally and completely in a focused way to our job. And then there's hard to work for, and that is a different animal altogether. That's someone who is difficult in communicating. They're usually not humble or kind. They're somewhat egotistical. They're trying to force their view on others, and none of us like to have someone's view forced on us. So even if you're hardworking, forcing that view on someone else is not appropriate. For example, they may have a whole different family situation than you do, a whole different set of other criteria and issues that they're facing. Maybe it's a marital problem or a medical problem. So we need to be kind and understanding at the same time as we're hardworking.
Yeah, maybe another way to approach this question is, I love to work hard. How can I continue to do that without setting a pace? It becomes a turnoff to others.
You first of all have to love your people. And if you love your people, then you're not going to impose something on them that they can't accomplish either. You don't want them to fail. By pushing them beyond what they're capable of, you'll cause them to fail. For example, let's say you're a great marathoner, that somebody else is a sprinter. Trying to get them to run at the same pace that you do for 26 miles is beyond what they can do. We all have different levels of energy, and some people sprint through the day and others pace themselves, and that's just a characteristic of how they work. Encouraging them to have good work habits is a good thing. So you need to have that as part of your culture so that your people understand that they should be working while they're at work and not doing other things which are not productive. So setting the proper example and having the proper culture is important. So I don't want to emphasize that, let them get away with anything, because certainly that's not appropriate either. Setting a good example is different than being a dictator. If your people come to you with a question, you have to push yourself back and answer it. You can't just turn them off and say, I'm too busy. Why don't you go back to work also? So you want to be helpful at the same time being hardworking. And sometimes it may be inconvenient for you to have to break what you're doing in order to help them. But if they know that you're a helpful person, and I have in the book this concept of being a servant leader, you're not a good leader until you're a good follower. Setting the proper example as a good follower means that you're a team person. There's no I in team. So if they feel you're part of the team and not just a lone stranger as you would, then you're going to get more out of your people.
Okay, so Uncle Ray, how often can a CEO or a founder get away with hanging a sign on the door that says, like, I need a 3-hour block to just concentrate?
Good question. So I always had an open door policy in my tenure as CEO for 37 years at Mike Krell, and my door is always open unless I had a confidential conversation going with someone. My office always had windows, and people could see if I was in there talking with someone, and then it was a confidential conversation, and the door is closed. But other than that, the door is open. I might say, can you give me a couple of minutes, or can I give you a call back? I do it in a very nice way. I smile. I do it in a very loving, kind way. I don't say, can't you see I'm busy? Get out of here. I don't do that. I just say, can you give me a couple of minutes? Let me just finish what I'm doing, and I'll get right back to you. But I do it in a very loving, kind way.
Got it. Well, that sets the bar pretty high. Like, you got to give people.
Yeah, I have time for you. In other words, you need to say, I do have time for you. I do care about you. And so oftentimes, if you have something really critical you're working on, you might pick a time when they're not there, either early in the morning or late in the evening. During the work hours when the employees are there, you have to be available. If you want to be a successful CEO or executive, you have to make time for your people. Otherwise, they're going to feel not part of the team, and you'll develop these silos that you don't want in your organization.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Something to work on for sure. In my company, the environment we create around here, I think you're right. That's what we need to do. One last question. We've had a hard time with this, but what about millennials? We've actually had a hard time hiring millennials, trying to, maintain this culture of hard work.
Well, again, everybody's different. If you want them, if that's the kind of culture you want at your company, you have to adapt to that. If you don't want that kind of culture, then you have to make sure that doesn't happen within your organization. So you're building a team, and if one person plays soccer and the other plays basketball, it's kind of hard to integrate them. So you've got to have the same people with the same values working together on a project. I'm not saying to ignore them, but sometimes they don't fit into what you're trying to do, especially when you're new and trying to get the company off the ground.
Thank you, Uncle Ray.
Thanks, Richard. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Love having feedback from you and getting advice, and really appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast.
And do connect with Ray on social media. You can find his contact points for Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook at toughthingsfirst.com/contact. Also, by all means, subscribe to the Tough Things First podcast using iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and all the popular podcast apps. And if you have not already, get a copy of his book, Tough Things First, at Amazon.com or your local bookseller.